Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way, I'm not going to do it. Things are going great. We're going to have a great time this morning. Glad I'm back with you all after yesterday's travel day and birthday celebrations of my youngest daughter. We had a great time. I managed to get in at about 11 a.m. after my red-eye flight out of Vegas. We had a great time in Vegas. Pleasantly surprised about the good vibes in Vegas. I think you're seeing a lot of chatter online about that today, so I'm glad a lot of people had the same experience that I had. It was wonderful catching up with all my Bitcoin friends. It was great to socialize. It was great to just catch the vibe, see where people are at. And we're doing great. We're doing great. NPCs, not so much. We're going to talk about them this morning, but I hope you're all doing well. We got Chef Zero in the house. He's first up with the first comment in the live chat today. Says that in the dispensation of the fullness of times, he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him. Ephesians 1:10. I appreciate that, Chef Zero. Beautiful blessings, beautiful Bampians. Lance 2002 in the house. God bless America and Bitcoin indeed. That's great. Morning, y'all. Hit up Ironworks in Austin over the weekend, and it was excellent. Thanks for the recommendation count. Amazing, Charlosky. Yeah, good vibes there. And that's generally the place I go. Hilarious story too. Consensus probably 2022, the first time I went to Ironworks. I sat down with a guy who taught me all about the passport scheme in America with how the passports work and this and that. So that would have been a few months before I ever did the show on Wizard of Oz, but he's the guy who turned me on to the Wizard of Oz storyline. So that would have been, and just a random guy. He wasn't, and he was a Bitcoiner. It was just a complete random occurrence and occasion to meet the fella. So I have very fond memories and make it to that barbecue every single time I'm there. And indeed, as John C919 says, you can't go wrong with Texas barbecue. Indeed, you can't. But something about that place is absolutely the my grandfather, everyone. I think it's the greatest food in the world. Texas barbecue. Nothing compares to it. When people ask me what my favorite food is, and for a long time, I like Italian, I like Japanese. I've been consistent for over 20 years in saying my favorite food is American food. I don't care what anyone says. French food. I lived in France. I used to do that. I trolled people. It definitely got reactions. But when I lived in France and they would say, do you like the French food? I'd say, yeah, it's pretty good. And they'd say, oh, it's the best in the world. I said, well, I think American is literally the best food in the world. And at the top of the pile in American food is Texas barbecue. So there you go. I like the food here in Quebec too, though. Don't get me wrong. We don't do barbecue like the Texans. We do other stuff that I love. Good morning, gang, says Soap Miner. Hope you're doing well, everyone. Have been wanting some smoked brisket now. We went to a buffet last night for my kids' birthday dinner, and they love the buffets because they get to choose all their desserts, and they like Jell-O. Nobody ever makes them Jell-O in life or anything like that. So all the kind of junk food you don't get, but I had some really good smoked meat, Montreal smoked meat there. And for you Americans, that's similar to corned beef, the corned beef sandwiches that you get in New York City, but we don't call it that. And it's made slightly differently in Montreal. We call it smoked meat, even though it's not anything like a Texas brisket or anything like that. And but it's excellent. It's boiled first mostly, and totally different process than what you guys get in America. But hell of a sandwich, I'll say. Hell of a sandwich. I just had it cut right off the thing. So with mustard, it's excellent. Pioneering Freedom says, I listened to Nolan to try to understand the pro-Trump argument. You're going to hear some pro-Trump arguments today, Pioneering Freedom. So get ready. I hope they help you. We're going to have a real good time with the pro-Trump stuff. Trump, all-time power levels right now, completely altering the world with what he's up to. We're going to talk about it. Last 2002, welcome aboard to Pioneering Freedom. Going late, LA, late. Happy Friday, Nolan and Awakening gang. All this brisket talk is making me hungry. Can you get good brisket? You guys got the LA Galbi. You guys got the Korean food out there in... of all the countries I'd have to pick second, it's got to be Korea. I'm an absolute fanatic about Korean food, and you guys got great Korean food in LA. I'll go to Korea just to eat. I'll go there just to eat food. I'm Korean barbecue. I was trying to like subtly get my kid to choose Korean barbecue yesterday over the buffet, which she inevitably chose. And but I'm always, oh, don't you want to go for Korean barbecue? But she didn't bite. Charlosky says, yes, it was very good. My first time trying it. I will say, though, that my hometown, Kansas City. Okay, so Charlosky, I will say that I've never been to Kansas City, and I got to make a pilgrimage there. And I've never crystallized and hardened my idea that Texas barbecue is the best food, simply because I'm waiting to try the Kansas City stuff. And I'll say this as well, that in the old Major League Baseball circuit, when Montreal was still there, all the players use they have traditions or habits when they go to different cities in the Major League Baseball calendar. Montreal was a particular city that all the players enjoyed going to because of the food. Barry Bonds' wife was from Montreal because they like the socializing too. It's sort of a city where they would party a little more and get up to trouble a little more. It's the same in hockey. In hockey, the coaches always let the players eat the famous hot dogs that we serve in our hockey arena. Big game tonight for you sports ballers. Montreal could eliminate Tampa Bay tonight. I'll be watching that later on. City is in total euphoria right now. Montreal's whole vibe goes with the hockey team and has for many years. So the hockey players always prioritize food when they come here. Even if they lose, the coach kind of has to let them get the hot dogs delivered. In baseball, it's the same. Baseball, like I said, Montreal was a big spot, but Montreal was never the number one food spot. Every baseball player to this day says they can't wait for their time in Kansas City because every baseball player, like I said, traveling the nation has tons of quotes about this part of the traveling circus that is the Major League Baseball season. And all of them say that they look forward to Kansas City on the schedule more than any other stop because of the food. So there you go. I've heard it for many years that it's the greatest. And it's just, you can't get it outside of it. So you can't get it outside of Kansas City. You can get people pretending to do it, and you can't replicate it either. But everybody tells me it is number one, and I've never confirmed in my own mind that Texas is the best because I haven't tried the situation in Kansas City yet. Sweeter, as I understand. I've been on the Carolinas for all of that, and get out of here. I don't want to hear that argument ever again. I waited to try the Carolina stuff. It was good, but stop. It's not even in the same. I can get Carolina quality anywhere for barbecue. That to me just tastes like normal barbecue. It's fine. It's great. Barbecue is still my favorite, right? The smoke stuff and everything, but it's not even as good as Texas. Not even close. The Carolina stuff is heavily replicatable. I'd take it any day, trust me, but it's not. To me, it's not at that level. Yes, it was very good. Yeah, exactly. KC, burnt ends are undefeated. Yeah, there's some barbecue that tries to replicate Kansas City stuff, and I always order the burnt ends, and those indeed are amongst my favorites. Good morning to the best people, says Seaberger. We missed you, Seaberger. We missed you. Welcome back to the Northern Studio, says Davy Boy 90. The best people. Chatelet, good morning, gang members. Like the Like Awakeners, MMK 007, who I got to spend some time with in, where was I? Las Vegas. I got to spend time in Las Vegas with MMK 007. We had a good meetup, good coffee chat. It was awesome. Very fun stuff. Nashville has great barbecue. I didn't love it, Seaberger. I tried a few when I was there. I'll go back to Nashville next summer, I guess, because the event is going to be there again. It was good, but again, I found it to be pretty equal to lots of other places generic barbecue that's not an insult. It's just the level to which, I've enjoyed the Texas stuff. You got to stop Nolan. I'm drooling over here. Especially great happy Friday to Nolan. There you go. There you go. Joe's Kansas City for burnt ends. It is Bourdain's list of 13 places to eat before you die. There you go. Narwhal might be able to weigh in here. I grew up in Texas and still visit family there, but the best Mexican food I've ever had was outside of Kansas City. Put me for the Hab, says Lee J369. Great. Awesome 2 hours, says MMK007. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Really nice to hang out, MMK007. Enjoyed it greatly. And to all you others, I didn't end up doing a general meetup just because I think I've met a lot of you over the last couple of days at the event. Lots of people came up. Lots of folks from the Great Awakening gang came up and said, I'm this person, I never, blah, blah, blah. So I love hearing that, guys. Please never stop with the feedback. I get a lot of joy when I hear that you guys like the show so much. And it's a nice bit of dopamine for me. So keep it coming. Keep it coming, please. We're big fans of you guys liking the show. So there you go. All right, folks. Let's acknowledge that is a major sunrise behind me. Let me see if the Let me see if I can get the sky a little. No, that ruined it, huh? Really cold here today. Really, really cold. I just totally washed it out, huh? Yeah, really quite cold. That's going the opposite of what I thought it would do. I guess that's better. Anyway, really cold here today. We're back down into the 40s, high 30s. There you go. Red or blue, Nolan, asking for a friend. Yeah, I mean, I saw it, and it's obviously whatever the selfish one is the answer, obviously. I can't, that question, the minute I saw it, I realized what a trap it was. And I actually talked about it on stage in the Deep, it's called. There's a special stage at the event that's just for the whale pass holders and all these folks. And you do all these sessions that I think are published. But I did one talking about that experiment right there. And I forget the colors in the game, but whatever the selfish one is, whatever the most selfish one is. The one where you survive, I would definitely flick the you survive one. It's 42 outside here now in Chicagoland. Yeah, very, very. How about a Minnesota Montreal Stanley Cup final? I don't care who we play from the West. I'll play anyone. We're going to win the cup. In Quebec, we say "Ça sent la coupe." That means it smells like the cup. And that's what Montrealers say as like hello at this time of year. And like if I go into a coffee shop right now, well, I mean, not my coffee shop. They're a little, they love coffee. Let's put it that way. I don't know how much they love hockey, but I love that they love coffee. Don't get me wrong. And but in if you go to like a normal diner right now in Quebec and like a breakfast joint or something, and instead of saying hello, you could just say "Ça sent la coupe," and which is it smells like the cup. Very typical hello expression when the Habs get good. I suppose in the old days that's where it comes from. They used to win so much that it just became the way people talk. So "Ça sent la coupe," indeed. "Ça sent la coupe." So there you go. All right, let's acknowledge it smells like the cup, but it also smells like a delicious cup of coffee. Because we got nothing else to worry about, guys. The sun is up. Bitcoin is running. We're doing excellent. Let's have this beautiful coffee and talk about what's new. All right, first up, all kinds of stuff is shifting out there. Feminism kind of failing. Things are happening. This is a user-generated story too. The NPCs, it's not going great, guys. They're not having a great time. And the women NPCs in particular, it turns out that urban birds, guys, urban birds are more scared of women. Did you know that we're able to measure the relative fear of urban birds? I don't know about the country birds. Them countryside birds probably have different prejudices. than the urban birds. But as it stands, according to science, they were able to measure this, right? The scientists were out there, they were conducting surveys on the birds. They were seeing if the birds moved and what they did, right? We find out that species from pigeons to woodpeckers let males come nearer than females, a pattern seen in parks across Europe. Guys, women, everyone's turning on them. The scientists have figured it out. The birds too. The birds, they hate women. They're afraid of them. They're afraid of the women. So what would we do without this kind of science, guys? So they got people that go to the parks and they go, how close can the boy get? And then they measure it. They bring out a ruler, right? And they're like, oh, he got within 25 feet. And then women come around and it's like, whoa, no way, 30 feet, right? It's all the women. Yeah. Bird hands that make them standoffish. Yeah. It's the bird hands. ATech Buzz might have figured it out. Yeah. We should actually do a new study. I think we need several $1 million. We need all the trash tokens we can gather. And let's really dig down on that. Let's find the man hands women versus the delicate hands women. And if the man hands women can get closer to the birds, then we have our answer. So that's a really important point. Thanks for bringing that up, ATech Buzz. That's the answer right there. Now we get it. Now we get it. I blame birth control, right? It just who's the expert? Dr. Doolittle. Well, a scientist, man. Let's find out. A European study found the urban birds flew. Yeah, scientists don't know why. They controlled for height, clothing, color, direct gaze, and long hair. They got to control for the hands. I think we're on to something. It is the little hands. They're worried about the hands. Oh, this is good too. You're out there. It's tax season. People getting their tax returns now, right? Tax refund coming. Here's what experts say you should do with it. So if you get a tax refund, we finally have some answers. You have some extra money lying around. Let's find out, right? You can invest it, TFSAs, right? A recent survey, you should pay off your credit card. So I know you're all sitting there saying, what should I do with all this money that I just got? And I don't know what to do. And finally now, right, people should save up, right? You should save your money. That's a good idea, according to the experts, right? She says financial challenges. Did you know, guys, that financial challenges people face today mean you need an emergency fund? Did you know that a bad economy means you should have some money for emergencies? What about the birds? What about the birds, you guys? You're putting all this time into these studies and we're still trying to figure out what birds are more afraid of, right? I mean, I thought people knew most about this stuff. People really need some sort of sense of security and stability right now. I think there's a big lack of that, a lot of anxiety, says the experts, right? Once an emergency fund is in place, she recommends paying down high interest debt, guys. What should you do? What should you do with your money? Thank God you've got these experts. They're helping. They know what you should do. It's perfect. It's perfect. Hold on. I want no. There we go. Oh no, guys. Bad news for Africa. Bad news for Africa. Experts warn of rising lead risks in Africa's solar energy boom. So they got the solar energy flowing in Africa, but hold on. I don't know if they should do this. They're going to have lead risks, guys. They're going to be like Rome. They're going to fall. They're all going to forget what's going on. They're going to get lead poison. They're going to go nuts. This is what we found out years after a lead acid battery recycling plant shut down in Kenya's coastal city of Mombasa. Residents of Owino Uhuru said they are still suffering from lead poisoning. Faith Muthama, 40, a mother of 4, says her health has never recovered. Life has never been the same, she said, wiping away sweat. I still struggle to do heavy chores, breathing difficulties. So guys, we got to rethink all this electricity to Africa because lead poisoning. Now you know. Oh, here we got this from the Salon. This is a good story here. Trump's ballroom ploy might work, security experts say. The incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner might help Trump get his ballroom built. but it's not the quick security fix he's selling. Guys, it's his ploy, the ballroom ploy. Of course, Trump hired that guy. Come on, of course he did. It's all to get his ballroom. It's a ploy. It's his ploy. Obviously, don't trust that Trump guy with his ploys. Right. This is good. We got experts on the election stuff. What 37 election experts say could disrupt the midterms. We got 37 election experts. What are they going to say? That voter ID can be gamed? Let's find out. There are always unanswered questions heading into an election, right? But here, 2026, President Donald Trump's broadsides against the legitimacy of U.S. elections and efforts to overhaul election laws have generated lots of uncertainty and anxiety. And whether this will be a normal election year, if election officials and voters are alike are left to wonder whether there will be new requirements for voters, physical interventions at the polls, or attempts to overturn results after the fact. 37 experts say what is going on. Here's what they say. New federal laws, not mu. Experts didn't say mu. Are unlikely, but split on state laws and court intervention. So yeah, there you go. Overall, most experts didn't expect states to significantly change their election laws. If there are going to be major election law changes before the midterms, experts say they come from the third branch of government, the judiciary. That just been there you go, guys. So obviously Trump is going to steal the election according to these guys, and experts say 37 experts. Here's what we get to. Just as he's out there stealing elections, Napoleon, Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Trump, all the same. Always the self-aggrandizer. The president now speaks of himself in historical terms. Can you believe Trump is speaking of himself in historical terms? Can you believe the gall of this guy to go out and say that, right? Can you believe it? What a jerk. Who does he think he is? Napoleon, Caesar, and Alexander the Great? At the same time, we got this going on, right? We got this. Authoritarianism is supercharging the climate crisis, guys. Written by Nazia. Nazia is saying authoritarianism is supercharging the climate crisis. This is what we've got. The playbook: suppress truth, lock in fossil power, crush dissent. What are the MLK, the BP, QBDC people saying about it? They hate it too. They hate it. Transnational authoritarianism hurts the ability to adapt and survive. The case for human rights centered climate politics. There you go, guys. Nazia Iram, which means like Nazis are wrong. Nazia Iram in Latin. Works with Amnesty Internationals. There you go. That's in her name. This one's good too. Future of good. How do we get people to care about climate change? Push hard, push fast, and don't stop. Many are deliberately tuning out the news, protecting their mental health, managing eco-anxiety, and shielding themselves from vicarious trauma. 2 weeks ago, a young environmentalist asked me, what does Future of Good do on climate? Right? What do they do? Right? Here's what they do. All kinds of stuff, right? You got to meet it head on. You got to fight it. You got to do what you got to do. Anouk. Thank you, Anouk. It sounds like a Quebecois. And we get this out of Canada, I think our last one for the morning. How to survive if you're suffering through Canada's longer and more severe allergy seasons, guys. How do you survive? We're going to find out how you survive. Which cities are Canada's allergy hotspots and what treatments really work? Here's the latest on how to cope. We got climate change troubles. People are dying and they've got mega allergies. Which regions? We've got some bad regions. West Coast. I have friends who go to the West Coast just to get out of it. I have a friend back here who has terrible allergies. He literally goes to the West Coast to avoid it, which is funny. Anyway, what are the best ways to ease the symptoms, right? Avoidance, right? Avoidance, closing the windows, not drying clothes outside, right? You can do all kinds of stuff. There you go. But it's getting worse, longer, more terrible. Suffering with the allergies. Suffering. All right. That's what we got for NPC News today. Why is this all crooked? I don't know. So we're gonna start today. I'm gonna have one more sip of coffee, and we're out of the NPC news. We're into the Bitcoin focused news now, and we're going to. I'm stuck in the waiting room. My son is doing blood work. The fake news TV is blasting in the waiting room. Oh, vey. Yeah. It's the only place you ever see that stuff anymore. All right, we're going to start with a story that's 2 days old, but I missed it yesterday, and I would like to talk about it with you. First of all, it helps. I've been saying for a few weeks that Powell wasn't going to leave. Now, I was a little wrong in the sense that I thought he would use more of the story that he's caught up in with the renovations and the criminal charges and Thune's own inability to get any of Trump's nominations passed. So I thought perhaps he would have trouble with Warsh and that it wouldn't happen. So I said Powell wasn't going anywhere. Or there was a chance he wasn't going anywhere. But in the end, it worked out a little different. So they dropped the criminal charges, which took away his predicate around that part. And then Warsh indeed was confirmed. So Warsh in a few days now, in 10 days, I guess, will be the Fed Reserve Chair. But I was correct in stating that Powell would not leave, and he's keeping his board seat, which was the big story 2 days ago. So we're going to talk a bit about that now. And first of all, he went on this thing about how it's the independence. Here he is talking about independence. I'll play some of the audio for this just because we got to hear him in his own words. And of course, the Associated Press, Jerome Powell said he plans to remain on the board of the Federal Reserve after his term comes to an end for a period of time to be determined, saying that unprecedented legal attacks by Trump have put the Fed's independence in question, and here he is selling the Fed independence.
I welcomed the announcement last Friday by the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia that she had closed the criminal investigation. She also noted, however, that she would not hesitate to restart the investigation. Over the weekend, the Department of Justice provided assurances that they will not reopen the investigation unless there's a criminal referral from the Fed's Inspector General. I've said that I will not leave the board until this investigation is well and truly over, with transparency and finality, and I stand by that. But these legal actions by the administration are unprecedented in our 113-year history, and there are ongoing threats of additional such actions. I worry that these attacks are battering the institution and putting at risk the thing that really matters to the public, which is the ability to conduct monetary policy without taking into consideration political factors.
It's what really matters to the public. They just want the Fed to be independent. This is just what everyone's worried about. They just need it to be independent. Everyone's worried.
After my term as chair ends on May 15, I will continue to serve as a governor for a period of time to be determined. I plan to keep a low profile as a governor. There's only ever one chair of the Federal Reserve Board. When Kevin Warsh is confirmed and sworn in, he will be that chair.
So excellent news. But of course, as we know, there is no such thing as Fed independence. Here, where in the Federal Reserve Act in 1997 and 1977 Federal Reserve Reform Act or the 1978 Humphrey-Hawkins legislation, is there any reference to central bank independence? It does exist. Don't blame me for saying that. Blame legislators for not including it in their legislative language. If it is so important and in keeping with the constitutional directive of the Congress to regulate the money. Indeed, the Humphrey-Hawkins Act calls for improved coordination among the President, Congress, and the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. By the way, the Fed said it is independent government agency, but nevertheless accountable to Congress, since the Fed chair testifies before Congress twice a year. But Powell was due to present that monetary report in mid-February and has refused to do so in a fit of pique, despite entreaties from Capitol Hill. So much for honoring even the ritual of supposed accountability, let alone the rule of law. Now, our frame here has always been that the Fed isn't independent, that it does have a master, and the master is somewhat opaque and beyond our vision and beyond our sight. which is exactly why the whole story around the UK and London is becoming really relevant today, and why people are paying attention to it, because it looks like there is some shadowy um, incentive system around the entire Federal Reserve. And now you're even seeing that come out, how independent the Fed Reserve actually is becoming much more of a story. And people are starting to see it. Even on Wall Street, here's a Squawk Box story from just yesterday with the former World Bank president talking about what the Federal Reserve really is.
Yeah, it's worrisome. You know, the Fed basically has become now just a giant hedge fund. It's lost $1 trillion, you know, and counting. It's going to be a gigantic loss. What it does is borrows money at 5.4% from banks and then dumps it into government bonds. So think what that trade does. That causes the government to think that it's better off than it is. And so that encouraged the government to be short when rates were zero. So why did the government, borrow so much in T-bills? Well, because the Fed was buying the bonds, and it made it look like yields were going to stay low for remember the low for long phrase. So we've got these multiple problems that are going on, and it endangers the dollar. So that's the basic case.
Instead of the Fed having such large balances, wouldn't the private sector be starting businesses and risking capital and bringing returns and adding to growth? Wouldn't all that money be better if it wasn't with the Fed?
That's right, and we're depending on private equity. So as the banks get squeezed out, because they're lending so much to the Fed, it's literally a floating rate loan from banks to the Federal Reserve so it can buy government bonds. So if that were freed up, that would allow the banks to at least consider a small business loan and inventory loan, the kinds of things that help the economy grow. And this is on a global basis. It's not just the Fed. It's all the major central banks doing the same thing, meaning taking money from the economy in order to buy government bonds. We need to be clear on that. I heard the previous segment, they talk about money printing. There isn't any money printing on it. It's just money borrowing, and they pay top dollar for it. The Fed pays 5.4 to banks and 5.3 to money market funds, so to the Fidelity and Vanguard and so on.
You think that?
So that's the important piece here, that the whole world is doing this thing. What the? Balloon pop, birthday balloon popped. So the whole global system is seeing the same thing, where the private economy is being redirected by central banks to buttress these failing governments and to really take away the credibility of public debt altogether. By using this one of the last ever systems they have in order to control this stuff. So what it really comes down to is a global group of bankers that are set on using this new mechanism, this new iteration of the Federal Reserve, in order to fund government debt and fund governments, just period, right? That's the whole thing. So there is a complete and total schism now, starting with the American system of how this central banking cartel is going to operate going forward. And it's a big fault line in World War III. As you know, I've been using the frame of psychological and economic war as the actual field of battle in World War III. And with Warsh coming in here, Matt Dines has a really good frame. The Trump versus Powell framing as portrayed by the broader media and accepted in public discourse is entirely wrong. I wouldn't say entirely wrong. It has its own uses. But a better frame here, and this is just a frame of attitudes and a frame of systems and a frame of how you keep this psychological engine running. He says here, in my opinion, Powell versus Warsh framing more accurately maps onto reality. Warsh and Powell come from two distinct political power factions and capital bases, representing the apex of Bagot-style central banker leadership for each. Think of Powell as representing the last vestiges of the American post-war Ancien regime. He's aligned with the technocratic consensus and approaches monetary policy from the toolkit of the new Keynesian models, Phillips curve inflation theory, forward guidance, and activist quantitative easing. He's a very high net worth individual relative to the American population, and primarily invests in passive S&P index funds and muni bonds. He's plain vanilla with the establishment, hence the not so subtle siding with him from the mainstream financial media in his current board fight. In the world of finance, Warsh represents the polar opposite in background and approach to capital. As has been widely reported during his appointment process, he comes from and married into money. But it's the role in shaping and defining his treatment and approach to the management of capital that is interesting detail. He earned his chops at the entry level as an M&A attorney, practicing the actual craft. He knows how capital actually works, in contrast to practitioners blindly relying on models without understanding their map is not the territory. As an investor, he's tied himself with the macro of the investment community, which boils down to the mentality that seeks to invest in markets as they are, not what our models purport them to be. The chairmanship is a settled issue. Trump will nominate Warsh onto the FOMC board seat that Moran occupies, but was not renominated into after it exited in January 2026 for this exact reason. The battle is over board makeup. Don't fall for the Trump versus Powell toy narrative that distracts from the actual conflict at hand. This is a Warsh versus Powell conflict, which represents a broader clash between two different power bases and their differing views on approach to monetary policy. It is just one niche example of many in the contest between the legacy post-war establishment and the emergent movement to the next reign that we broadly map onto the Trump phenomenon. But hints at a much deeper elephant in the dark we're all feeling out with our hands, which we can sense is all there. Predicting the way this plays out as a markets guy, I've learned to appreciate the power of the trend. And the challengers to the legacy regime have all the wind at their backs. Powell is risking a lot here, and for all his effort, may still end up getting steamrolled when it's all said and done. And indeed, I think he will, because going back to where this elephant in the dark and feeling, what's going on and this coordination that's happening with the Federal Reserve, you can start to see that the whole edifice that's behind this global movement, the same people who are enemies of Trump domestically, the same people who are enemies of America abroad, the same globalist regime you're seeing popping up everywhere, as it's dying, as it's suffering from all of these various attacks around the world, all of these deep state institutions from OPEC to just the central bank funding mechanisms around the EU. All of these things seem more and more like deep state projects and various schemes to remove sovereignty from individuals and from localities. So when you see, for example, this cloak and dagger fight going on, and then you see which parts of the system are reacting to this fight, you can see here that yesterday's story also by Thune saying that the Republicans will not ban CBDCs. You're seeing it come out again. Because remember, Trump's original enemy in all of this stuff was the GOP. That's the first adversary he took on. It isn't completely dead yet. And when you see Thune and these others, this kind of stuff, Thune has reportedly said he'll block any permanent ban on central bank digital currencies to any legislative house that sends it over. No Save America. Rep. Luna dropped the bombshell. She says, "Attention America, John Thune said he will not support a CBDC ban in any of the legislation we send over. He has also said no to Save America." So you're still seeing this hidden secret force operating in this way. You're still seeing this stuff happen, which is why we're seeing the war play out in this composition of the Fed board, in this composition of how the monetary system will work going forward, how much independence the Fed will get. I don't believe it'll get any, and Trump is actually trying to subordinate the Federal Reserve to the Treasury versus this fake independence, which really means that the Fed Reserve is beholden to unseen forces that exist outside of whatever legacy media is going to report on or whatever people are able to pay attention to. So that's why here, the transition, aka Maryland Hoddle, you should all follow him, a great account, saying 250th anniversary of American independence, the Mar-a-Lago Accords equals financial independence from the European banking cartel. And here you see Trump, you see Saylor at the event in Vegas saying much the same, saying, I'm calling it now. Saylor knows something big is coming in July. Watch the video at 2140. Clearly, we're in hyper growth right now. May will be interesting. June will be interesting. July nods head. I've said before that Saylor will have the clearest view of anyone in the financial world on which players are lining up monster buys or building projects in the Bitcoin space. So this is why the subordination of the Federal Reserve and the 250th anniversary of the American system is such a consequential story, and why I framed for well over a year now, I've told you, first, you're going to see the end of the funding and propaganda mechanisms from USAID and the NGO system. From there, things move very quickly into this direct financial fight. And over the Fed Reserve, that's where Trump started his attacks on the Federal Reserve. That's why I predicted from the beginning of the Trump administration, the number one story of the first year was going to be the subordination of the Treasury. And I see even in the comments, this is the part where, what did you say? Where was it again? The pro-Trump argument for what's going on. Where did that quote come? Oh yeah, here. Pioneering Freedom says, don't get me wrong, I was very pro-Trump, but his second term has been a disaster. No arrests for Epstein files, Iran war, and very obvious collusion with Israel. He's a totally different guy. So again, go back and look at the first year and a bit, and you'll see exactly what's going on and why I was able to predict it. So go back and watch the original episode where the stuff in Iran first started last year. When that stuff first started last year, I said, okay. And the Elon Musk fight started when he said, you're in the Epstein files. Trump's in the Epstein files. What did that end up provoking? It provoked, and remember what that fight was about. It was about the big, beautiful bill. It was about the big, beautiful bill. And that created, when Elon Musk said Trump is in the Epstein files, it created the largest conversation you've ever seen in the history of America about ending the Fed, because you can't just tell people this stuff. You get them involved in a storyline, you get them involved in cheering on winners and losers, and Trump is very good at the old wrestling heel turn, babyface turn. He can be a villain very easily if it serves his purpose, because you can flip back. It's all wrestling. You can just flip back. So I said at that time it was pure kayfabe, and that I would be right if you saw this play out with the Federal Reserve becoming subordinate to the Republic, and that you would see the new system start to become obvious and clear. The new system came out within days, and we saw when Elon Musk rejoined Trump, and we also saw MBS and the Saudis there at the same time. That was back in the autumn. That's exactly when this criminal probe started on Powell, and when the Epstein files started to be released. So that's exactly what happened. That's then all was forgiven. Elon Musk was back in because it was a type of kayfabe. It was a type of wrestling promotion in order to get people to focus on a story, in order to set the groundwork for what's coming next. And I said the whole time that you would see all of this trouble wrapped up in time for the 250th anniversary of the United States, and in time for the continued golden age narrative, and that Trump would flip back to the babyface hero of the story around the 250th anniversary of the United States, and he would run golden age rhetoric from then on. Now, it's hearsay, but I'll tell some rumors of stuff that I heard while I was in Vegas, and this is from people directly connected to the White House. And I said, this is what I expect to happen over the next few months. And they said, you're entirely correct. You're going to see Trump focus heavily on golden age, totally on the American economy, totally on pumping up the energy systems, pumping up everything that we can build in time for the midterms, because it's a hard pivot back. Now, even going back to this argument around kayfabe and even the Epstein files dropped to nothing once they couldn't find any Trump stuff in it. And it was a non-story for about a month before the Iranian war began. Now, Iran itself is a proxy for this old system that is involved in hiding central bank financial flows. It's a black box on purpose. It's created as a potential rug pull against the entire global financial system. And Trump, once he subordinates the Federal Reserve, has one more chance of pumping money into the system in the way the Federal Reserve used to work before. Our debt is just basically not credible anymore, and we have to flip to this new Mar-a-Lago Accord system, which is what's happening right before our eyes. And so if you don't do it in that order and you let Iran continue to have this potential rug pull, then Trump prints, and then it doesn't work because there's so much global anxiety injected into the economy in August or September that he loses. He gets totally toasted, totally blown out because gas prices are too high and Bitcoin is too shitty. He needs Bitcoin at all-time highs and gas prices at all-time lows, which is what he's setting up the situation to be. And you can see that the energy production is the bigger story, and getting these things running is the bigger story. So that's why I said, and I'll make sure I have the thing here because we have more from Repaluna. I don't think I ended up finding those ones. But there you go. Yes. So here's Repaluna just the other day. Now, what I said, if you want to, because we've got to make predictions, right? Predictions are how we get ahead, because predictions, we're all just trying to figure out what's going on. But when you make a prediction and it comes true, it's generally proof that when you made the prediction, you understood what was going on and what the factors were and what the state of play was, right? So I said to you that when the Epstein files first came out and that first debate before the Iran war happened, that you would see the 9/11 files, which everyone noticed were not included, right? You'd see them released over the summer because people weren't interested. It's too much information at once, right? It's just too much at once. So people stop paying attention, especially if Trump isn't the heel in the story, then there's just little interest in it. And that's what happened last time. That's why you saw right when the ceasefire started with Iran, what did you see right after? You saw, and that's exactly when this war started with Iran. I predicted that the minute this war came to an end, it would be a hard pivot back into Epstein files with new releases, new narratives, new storylines. When the ceasefire happened, what happened the next day? Melania came out and said Epstein files, and then and then it was, oh, Trump didn't know, she did it alone. Fake, pure wrestling. His wife and him, fake. So stupid. And then 3 days later, you had JD Vance come out and say, oh, yeah, the pizza. Yeah, we're going to look at, obviously, again, seeding the narrative and showing that this stuff is happening and it's being rolled out just like you would in a movie. There's a time and a place for all of this because this is being coordinated. There is a messaging, marketing rollout to all of this. And just as I said, so again, I said you'd see 9/11 declassification as summer reading after the 250th, after actual July 4th, because again, we've got to allow America to have this birthday party. And then you're going to get more bad news. That's going to be hard for people to understand our history. Because I remember I said the hardest part about all of this, and this is what you're really up against, is that everyone has known for years what happened to JFK. Yet the people and the public couldn't understand it, hear about it, but everybody knew. Jackie Kennedy knew who killed him. She was in the car. She saw the driver turn around and shoot him in the face. So the hardest part is always that this stuff has been known, but the projected reality onto people was just too thick, and people have a hard time with that reality, or the real reality. They have to take the simulacrum because it goes down easier, and people don't want to face these things. That's why they turned it off. That's why you can't explain to people that you are run by a criminal cartel that is the banking system, because it's too much. So people simply take on this other reality because it's a much more palatable reality. So you have to inject this as a type of microdosing, because if you just put it all out at once, it won't go anywhere. If you put it out as part of a movie and a storyline, that's why the marketing framework works in this way, because you need to consequentially draw people into the story so they get to the end of the movie. Otherwise, they're just going to not pay attention. So That's why you see here, boom, Rep Luna says 9/11 declassified files are incoming. So the same person who's telling you that Thune isn't going to help on the CBDC stuff, telling on this cartel, is also here teeing up the next summer reading narrative, which, as I said, it was going to be 9/11 declassification was going to be summer reading because it's the appropriate time to do it. And we're seeing here Trump already has the executive order, and it's in its final stages. So also obviously connected to JFK. That's why these stories are being rolled out in this order. That's why you're seeing it come out in this way. Again, it's just too much reality for some people. So you need the kayfabe. The kayfabe is the point. On the same day, you're seeing Luna on another storyline because Mar-a-Lago Accords and all of this stuff is related to energy. That's why you have to change the global energy system before you can launch the new financial system, because they're related. She's coming out and saying Thune isn't doing the CBDCs. That's telling on the old system. 9/11 reading is coming because that's where we're pivoting to for this storyline. And then you come here and it's very simple. She's out here now talking about the Tesla energy systems, right? So she's out there saying that the declassification task force. So you get Rep Luna will come out and start talking about all this declassification stuff because this is part of the story. This is part of the narrative. She's tipping you on what's happening next in the story. Because on the same day that we hear about this energy, we hear about this new system, it's not a mistake that the US military and Hegseth, the Secretary of War, comes out and says that Bitcoin is power projection. This is soft war thesis being completely this is declassified now. This is becoming we're seeing it in real time. We're seeing it shared with the population. So here he is talking about it yesterday. I will turn the audio on for sure because of how historic and important it is. So you're seeing here this changing energy system and why this story is so important.
Do you share the opinion that Bitcoin is a tool to project power? And are there any department-wide initiatives to ensure the U.S. secures a strategic advantage in Bitcoin and combats China's digital authoritarianism?
I guess my short answer would be yes and yes. Long an enthusiast of Bitcoin and crypto potential, and a lot of the things we're doing, enabling it or defeating it, are classified efforts that are ongoing inside our department, which do provide us a lot of leverage in a lot of different scenarios.
Do you share?
So, I mean, he says it's classified, but it's becoming more and more clear. Marty Bent says, Secretary of War Hegseth confirmed to Rep Lance Gooden that the Department of Defense is actively using Bitcoin in classified operations to counter China's digital authoritarianism. His exact words, I am a long enthusiast of Bitcoin and a lot of things we are doing, enabling it, defeating it, are classified efforts that are ongoing inside our department, which do provide us a lot of leverage in a lot of different scenarios. This follows last week's revelation. The U.S. military is already running a Bitcoin node, and seeing more and more this contrast between China and America and how important all of this. The era of Bitcoin as speculative curiosity discussed by finance committees is over. It's now being discussed in armed services hearings as an instrument of power projection, a tool of economic warfare, and a strategic reserve asset that nation states are quietly racing to accumulate. That's why you're seeing this war around energy, this war around power projection. And power projection is important because inevitably, none of these arguments work. People are not logical. They want to align with power. And energy, electricity, is power. And so controlling those things are going to change people's minds more than even 9/11 declassification or Epstein kayfabe or anything like that. That's what makes these things so incredibly powerful. And people will align with power. And that's why when you see OPEC and all these other deep state entities collapsing, you're seeing a realignment of not just electricity power. Here with what went on yesterday with UAE and Saudi and Russia and OPEC, you're seeing how the Mar-a-Lago Accords, power projection, and a realignment of the global economy that's against this cartel of the bankers really functions. Just like Marty said, Bitcoin leaving the world of finance committees and going into military applications is so important, because that is how power is realigning. It's going into the energy industry itself, and that is power projection. So here, Faisal Al-Khatbi says, do you understand what happened in the last 72 hours? The UAE quietly opened a sovereign dollar swap line with the U.S. Treasury. They're already a U.S. stablecoin country, right? They have a pegged U.S. dollar. Days before any cartel news broke, nobody on Bloomberg connected the timing. We did here. We've been saying this all week. Abu Dhabi formally announced it is leaving OPEC after 58 years, the first Gulf producer to walk out since the cartel was founded in 1960. And this is how, guys, I've been in UAE 6 times in the past 2 years, and I've been telling you consistently they are our greatest allies. The story in the Middle East with Iran is best understood by those alliances. It's best understood by what Saudi said about Israel, by what UAE said about Israel. They're getting Israel as a result of this. Israel is going to be theirs in the sense that it's going to be economically bound to the Middle East, no longer economically bound to the UK. Nothing like that is happening. It's being given to the Saudis. It's being given to the Emiratis. Now, they will still have a certain amount of sovereignty. We have the reality of Jewish people there. They're not going to be removed. That's what Trump got out of them, assurances that it will stay on that side and assurances that it will be protected, as it has been for hundreds of years before. The most of the kayfabe around Muslims hate this and that is 9/11 propaganda, the division that came from 9/11. Iran was the sponsor of that narrative. They sponsored that, and part of Israel liked it, right? It helped Israel too. That's how they survived in this. They survived using this fake prison of two ideas: pro-Israel, anti-Israel. That's what's breaking. Israel itself is not unified. Israel itself is a fucked up place with lots of division and lots of little cliques, the same as we have in America. The same divisions you see in America exist in Israel. In fact, weaker in the case of MAGA. That's why you can't domestically change Israel at all, because Netanyahu is extremely compromised. His entire edifice is not strong enough to project domestically the way Trump is able to with MAGA. So he just doesn't have that stuff. And he's been around for too long. He's completely compromised in every way. I'm not a huge fan of the Tucker Carlson stuff, but his reporting on Netanyahu and Adelson and all these guys was top-notch stuff, right? I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more traction. But again, I mean, Bitcoiners gave Trump more money than Adelson, okay? And that same person that I said gave me the intel on what's going on in the White House says, you know, Trump fundamentally and firmly believes that Bitcoiners won him the election in 2024. And that's why they need the Bitcoiners to be happy this time. That's why they're going to focus on Bitcoin in the next few months, because whether it's true or not, and I do believe it is true that Bitcoiners won in the election, it doesn't matter if it's true. They believe it. They 100% believe it. And I've said they believed it from the very beginning. This is what they think happened and what I think happened too. So I've been out in Abu Dhabi and all these places so much because I could see right away that this was the most important ally that America had right now, and that cultivating this relationship specifically around Bitcoin was going to keep everyone aligned as we went through this psychological and economic war. So seeing this stuff happen in this way is just what is going on. I mean, that's why I went the minute it seemed obvious to me that Trump was going to win. I went right to the Middle East. I recultivated all the Bitcoin relationships I had. We went again and again and again. I was in the conversation at the table with all the people saying, you know, the president would really appreciate if you guys bought a bunch of Bitcoin. And they bought 4,700 Bitcoin right then and there. It didn't become public for 2 months, but that was the gesture that they made. They bought 47. That's a pretty good stack, right? Pretty good stack. Abu Dhabi formally announced it's leaving OPEC after 58 years, the first major Gulf producer to walk out since the cartel was founded in 1960. The UAE was sitting on 93 trillion barrels. I don't know, billions or millions, lot of spare oil capacity, I guess that's billions, was never allowed to pump because Saudi driven OPEC quotas kept getting in the way. Saudi Arabia issued a 90-word statement saying the cartel remains strong and never mentioned the UAE by name. Silence speaks louder. The trigger nobody is talking about, Iranian missiles hit UAE cities and Saudi Arabia stayed publicly silent. Abu Dhabi remembered, but all of them stayed unified against Iran, and all of them have stayed unified with Israel, and the Abraham Accords have held. The first day of the Iranian war, I said, it's already over, because we didn't hear anything from China and Russia, and the Mar-a-Lago, the Abraham Accords held. That's all you need to know about the potential of the Iranian war to get out of hand. That was it. Once those things held, you saw that Trump's relationships with China and Russia were strong enough. He let oil keep going to them, another very good sign. We saw that Saudi and UAE took the brunt of the attack, and that the only oil Trump stopped getting anywhere was the oil to Europe. They were the enemy. The only people you hear crying about Iran and the Strait of Hormuz is Europe. And that same globalist clique that's getting Thune to not pass anti-CBDC legislation. It's all those same tentacles that come from the Federal Reserve and the psychological operations that come out of there. But moving from finance to energy is what this story is really about. So all this change over there, right? This is a great video here on OPEC and what it means and how big of a deal it is. And I'll play the audio here because this guy had a really great take, I think, that is making the rounds today. And
Dino, the UAE just left OPEC. What is OPEC, and is this a big deal? Is it going to impact oil?
I think OPEC stands for the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's what it means. So basically, it's a cartel, right? The oil world is an oligopoly. That means there's a few players only that have the oil. So it's like an oligopoly. And then within that oligopoly, an oligopoly is like a monopoly, but with several players. Within that, OPEC is like a cartel. And what OPEC does, if you're a member of OPEC, they control production, they control pricing. They'll say like, hey, we want prices per barrel of oil to be this much. And then what happens is, so each of you member countries can only produce so much because it's a supply and demand thing.
So they collude on pricing.
They price setting. So the UAE leaving OPEC, why? It's because they want to be a regional player. They're moving closer towards the West, the US, meaning in their ally, things that they do as a good ally of the US, they're moving towards like us, coming towards us. So they're leaving the cartel, because they have excess production capacity. They've spent so much money on building out their infrastructure to produce more oil that they're like, hey, I don't want to be controlled. I want to be able to sell more, especially after what's happening in Iran right now. The whole global geopolitical structure is going to change over there. And it looks like they just want to move closer to us and be free of any price control so they can sell more oil, and make more money basically, because things are changing. But what the impact is because OPEC is a cartel, as more cartel members leave, they have less control over the price. So the long-term, academic view on this, logically, is if they leave, maybe more other people leave. And more people who leave means there's more supply coming into the market because there's more suppliers now not being controlled. So more oil, more supply, oil prices could drop, basically.
That's good.
So, and when Pioneering Freedom asked, do you really think Trump will win the midterms? If Bitcoin's at an all-time high and oil is at, like $2 a gallon at the pump, yeah, he wins it's not even close. It's not even, and that's what I predict. I think you're going to get all-time low prices in oil and all-time high prices in Bitcoin. And that's the formula to win right there. Because again, people align with power. That they don't align with arguments. Arguments are retarded. No one follows arguments. You've tried to orange pill people. Have you ever been like, you are part of a bank cartel? And then people like, oh shit, I didn't know. Oh, now that you say it like that, I'm gonna go buy Bitcoin. That doesn't happen. That's not how people act. One of the hardest lessons I ever learned was getting excommunicated from Canadian sludge people back in 2015, 2016, because I was a Bitcoiner and a Trump supporter. and everyone's saying, "Oh, you can't Trump fascism." Da, 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 da. And they already knew I was a Bitcoiner. So if you come from a credentialist world, they basically bet against me and didn't mind if I wasn't their friend anymore. They didn't mind if they kicked me out of a social circle because my fascism, right? And these were technically conservative Canadians. My friends growing up were mostly conservatives, but they kept consuming the slop media and Trump's a Nazi and this and that. And so I thought, like a retard, that when I was proven right about Bitcoin in 2017 with the pump, and I was famously on all kinds of TV shows and lapping up the entire pump that the industry created back then, getting driven around, big success in New York City, getting driven around in black cars every day, getting driven right to the stock exchange and doors open, people come with umbrellas, and I walk in like a big shot all over the place. I was always wearing nice suits and always on television, and Trump hadn't caused any world wars. I thought, stupidly, that those same people who excommunicated me would, say, "Oh, Nolan, you it looks like you were right." Do you think anything like that ever happened? Of course not. They just doubled down on the mental illness and had to avoid me even more, had to excommunicate me even more. They had to go further on it. So people don't respond to arguments. They have their biases. They have cognitive dissonance. Inevitably, what they do respond to, though, is power. They will align with power. And that's why stay humble, stack sats is so important, because inevitably you're more persuasive if you're more successful, and if the rest of the world is along for the same kind of let's call it success trajectory, then you're going to get where you want to go. And how do you get success? Well, you make oil really cheap. This stupid fucking thing again. You make oil real cheap. Oh, come on. Why even put a handle if it doesn't tighten? Like, why even put the vise on there if it doesn't work? God damn it. That should be good. So seeing this story, seeing this OPEC story, seeing that power is realigning in this way, you're going to keep seeing it this way. Trump yesterday with Canada as well, putting the pipeline in. This is the end of Canada right here, guys. This is the end. I've been saying for a long time that Canada cannot survive north-south sovereignty, north-south infrastructure for Alberta, because it will give Alberta too much sovereignty within Canada, and then therefore cannot be held inside of Canada and the east-west axis of power any longer. So here is Trump describing what's going on with energy. This is just even more energy coming back, right? Boom, just signed a major presidential permit for a new transporter line, similar to the old Keystone XL pipeline. Again, I think you can go back to me saying here, let me find it just to make sure. Yeah, you'll see it right here. So Keystone XL pipeline right there, right? Coming back. It's a huge deal for long-term energy dominance and North American energy security. Trump roasting the last administration when he does it. Slightly different than the last administration. They wouldn't sign a pipeline deal. They go underground. Nobody even notices they're there. So crazy they wouldn't approve it. And here you can see years ago when I made this prediction, Canada, blah, 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 all this stuff. National pillars, Quebec. The good news about how Canada is going to fail here. The future, Trump approves the Keystone Pipeline. Alberta's Sovereign Wealth Fund adopts the Sailor strategy. Alberta renegotiates transfer payments. Ottawa crumbles under its own mismanagement. What happened the same day that this energy has been approved, right? What happened right when the energy was approved? And the Keystone Pipeline, I don't have this in my notes, but I want to pick it up because it actually happened the same day. I should have had it there. Again, these are not coincidences, right? These are not coincidences. Just yesterday, what I said in that prediction here, right, that you're looking at, the future, Trump approves the Keystone Pipeline, Alberta's Sovereign Wealth Fund turns around and adopts the Sailor strategy. Well, I don't know if they quite adopted the Sailor strategy on the same day, but they bought yesterday 142. They bought 1.38 million shares worth 219 million Canadian trash tokens worth of MicroStrategy. So that is the Alberta Investment Management Corporation. They have two sovereign wealth funds in Alberta. That's one of them, right? Coming out and buying MicroStrategy. That's the end of Canada, guys. That's it. That's all it takes, right? Again, I made this prediction on December 19th, 2024. Alberta renegotiates transfer payments, and that's the end, guys. That's toast. KO. Mike Tyson punch in the face. You're out. You're gone. And from now on, the point of Canada was to avoid this from ever happening. Is it a coincidence that Keystone and the Bitcoin buy happened the same day? Is that a coincidence? Everyone, I'm going to buy $140 million and a Keystone. Whoa. Of course not. Of course not. It is over. And you're seeing all this stuff happen on the same days because this power realignment is the way the world's headed, right? And here, James E. Thorne said, President Trump's new cross-border pipeline agreement underscores that Canada and the United States remain capable of serious, mutually beneficial cooperation on energy and security. It strengthens continental supply chains, support high-quality jobs on both sides of the border, and reinforces the principle that shared interests, not ideological fatalism, define this relationship, whatever the doomers might claim. But it's the doomer idea in general that's going down. No more doom. We're going to the golden age. Here, Gary Cordone says, OPEC, NATO, EU, all failed constructs implemented by deep state actors. UAE breaking away from OPEC is the most positive thing that happened to the energy markets and the world in a long time. I expect for Greece, Italy, Spain, or Turkey, or complete collapse of the EU, NATO. This is all unwinding and it is not reversible. Revolution is coming, and you're going to get more and more and more of this, right? It's the direction of this energy crisis, and look what it's doing to Europe. Look what it's doing to why we don't have Fed independence, right? The actual string pullers of Iran, of Israel. Israel is not some sovereign country doing stuff. It's a fake country created to divide people. And the people who created it in World War I still control the theater that's around it, that changes people's minds about stuff, that brainwashes people, that gets them stuck in this fake prison of two ideas. And as you say, you are correct, Pioneering Freedom. The problem is most people do think there is a red and blue team. There is no red and blue. The red and blue is the point of this division. They create the fake division, the fake binary, the fake prison of two ideas. Are you pro-Israel? Are you anti-Israel? And then that becomes somehow reality, that everyone can be understood through that lens. That's not true, right? That's just simply not true. I don't defend what Israel did in Gaza. It's not my job to defend them. Terrible, terrible stuff. They're just another country, though. They got caught up in crazy, crazy stuff. And they are a big part of the story, but they're not a sovereign actor. And that's why they're being given to Saudi and these other places. And that's why there's no way for the people that created it to stop what's happening. It can't be stopped, as you heard Gary Cardone say. And here you're seeing just why their hand is so weak. Again, this is why the world is changing, because people align with power. Electricity and power are the same thing. Let me know if the audio is coming through here on Prof.
Europe and Asia are facing the, quote, largest energy crisis in history, with over 50 countries now implementing emergency measures as the oil runs out. But not in America, where we drilled baby drilled in the face of a red tape wood chipper by environmentalists who failed to force us to eat the pixie farts. 2 months into the Iran war, the Wall Street Journal reports 50 countries have now implemented emergency measures. Some are rationing fuel, some are giving cash handouts so their citizens don't riot. Some are closing universities, closing factories, mandating work from home, just like COVID. Europe is down 75% of its jet fuel, canceling flights in the all-important tourism season. Australia is down to 30 days of jet fuel before it is cut off like a giant Robinson Crusoe with kangaroos. Ireland's government barely survived nationwide gas protests. Pakistan mandated a 4-day work week and closed all universities to avoid riots. Sri Lanka has declared every Wednesday a national holiday. Congratulations. In India, you cannot cremate with gas. You got to use firewood or break up the furniture to see dear Uncle Sanji to the next world. Egypt ordered an effective nationwide curfew at 9 p.m. Shops and restaurants have to close. They'll turn off the street lights, leaving you to the packs of stray dogs that are Egypt's national animal. In Bangladesh, there have been multiple cases of gas station workers beaten to death over fuel. Note, this is all with a global release of 400 million barrels of strategic oil reserve, replacing about half of the lost supply from Iran. In other words, whatever we're seeing now, it goes Mad Max when the reserves run out. Now, the key for oil isn't the war, it's the Strait of Hormuz. Bill Clinton recreationally bombed Iraq through the 90s and oil did not care. The Hormuz headlines flip by the hour, but oil futures markets are projecting disrupted supply into 2027 or even 2028, meaning it'll keep getting worse in Europe and Asia as they run out.
And you can see it already. It's not just the energy. Trump yesterday cutting off Germany, talking about getting rid of the security pact between them, more deep state edifices, NATO crumbling. Trump comes out and says, withdrawing troops from Spain, Italy, and Germany. Why shouldn't I? He says, Italy hasn't been any help. Spain has been horrible. When we needed them, they were not there. Trump is done with useless allies, and you're going to continue to see this. The weakening of these places here. You're seeing Trump again, called Trump's Iran policy humiliating, and now he's getting the bill. Trump just threatened to review and reduce the 35,000 U.S. troops stationed in Germany, more than a fifth of all American forces deployed overseas. Mertz is already backpedaling, claiming he has a great relationship with Trump. That's what happens when you take a shot at Trump's foreign policy and miss. So this is all their attempt to manipulate things. And why power persuasion with electricity and energy is going to work more than the fiat world. Remember, fiat is just government declarations as money. And so government declarations in that system control a lot. That's why brainwashing is such a big part of the fiat system. It's what I've been saying forever. If your money is government debt, and your money is government declarations, then you have to, in a Bitcoin world, you have to see node propagation and propaganda as the instrumental force that projects the system. But when you're making it electricity and then Bitcoin's a part of it, then that completely changes the conversation. Just like I said when we were talking about Hexith, that Bitcoin this is Marty Ben's take, when Bitcoin moves from finance committees into national security energy conversations, that's the actual power shifting. That's the realignment. That will change more people's minds than anything else. And that's why this attempt by Europe, this is all they've got. They're going to go with the censorship, right? They're going to go with blue sky. They're going to go with blue sky. Here you see the EU is looking for ways to push blue sky and EU type algorithms into X feeds. Analysts warn about EU propaganda being pushed to users. Mike Ben's here picking up on it. I've been warning for months about the EU's insidious long-range plan to build up blue sky and expand its network partners in preparation for a regulatory ban on X. They're calling it Eurosky, and the goal is to impose a new Iron Curtain. But simply will not work. Power projection is about aligning with energy, and not even China can stop it. Here's Zineb Rubia saying, my latest, China's machinery in Iran meets Washington's economic fury. For years, the IRGC sustained itself through shell companies, rotating vessel identities, and shadow banking corridors that kept oil revenue flowing far from formal financial channels, which was a feature of this central bank system out of London and the Federal Reserve System, that part of it was hidden in order to hide the true nature of the beast. And so that's why you needed propaganda to also help hide this, but it's falling apart. Turning every prior sanctions round into a temporary inconvenience absorbed and rerouted within months. Washington kept targeting individual nodes while leaving the broader network intact, which gave Tehran reasonable confidence that Epic Fury's ceasefire, like every pause before it, would open another window for recovery. That calculation is wrong this time because the cost of each passing week compounds rather than eases, with Treasury's action targeting the evasion architecture itself rather than its individual components. Ensuring that Tehran reads as time purchased is in fact institutional capacity being permanently stripped away. That architecture served as long as it did for one reason. China built the financial infrastructure to sustain it, but China itself having tons of trouble with all of this. That's why they're resorting to doing propaganda in America. And this comes down to what will actually win the midterms and why it's so important, because they're trying to get you to divide America around the data center question. Prof. St. Owen saying here, China and Russia want America to stop building data centers because AI leadership is the whole ballgame economically and militarily, and progressive politicians are useful idiots. Now, as you know, I've always said from the beginning, whenever you hear AI data centers, hear Bitcoin, they're the same story. They have been for a long time. All the AI stuff is getting built by Bitcoiners. All the people who build the Bitcoin mines are building the AI data centers. All those ones in UAE that are building the data centers that I met all this time, they were there first to build Bitcoin mines, stayed in UAE, and are now building the AI data centers because they know how to do it. It's literally they know how to do it, and that's it. And Bitcoin mining put the AI data center media business model ahead by 10 years. Co-location, all the stuff that we figured out in Bitcoin is now being applied. That's why operationally we're heavily involved, not just on economic incentives, although that's really important too. But that's why they're trying to do all of these propaganda and divide Americans around it. But again, Americans will align with power. And we do that too, right? Here, China is saying that the hostile foreign forces are driving its youth to slack off. So we're all doing this propaganda in each other's countries. Here, the CCP blaming lazy lie flat, the Chinese lie flat thing on the lie flat thing on American propaganda. So it's all moving. And, you know, here Mark Andreessen comes up with a really good frame. He says, every argument of because of the smartphone or the internet or social media is coped to avoid confronting the catastrophic collapse of incumbent institutional competence over the same time frame. And Jessica Vaughn reiterates saying, yes, technology is neutral and contingent on the ethics of the users. Now, this is why I say that these institutions failing is truly the reason why we've had so much, you know, terrible art and terrible culture. It's why we have this notion that, you know, even it's true, the cell phone thing, right? But this is why we're going to win. Because if you have the power, if you have the electricity, if you have that energy and you have the financial system, you're going to create better cultural references that aren't the result of all of this incumbent institutional collapse. I'm talking about just movies being made and produced on Disney's slot money and their gaming of markets and whatever dark pools of capital they have access to, has created a situation where we just don't want to watch movies anymore because they all suck. And even the social fabric piece is collapsing. But go back to this data center argument and why I say the data centers are so wrapped up in Bitcoin culture and why we're going to actually realign culture by controlling these power centers. And we're going to persuade way more people than arguments ever would. You're going to see that the citadels themselves are going to come out of this. Here's people talking about the data centers and how they do have this political opposition. And Kevin Patrick Mahaffey says more people would be pro data center if everyone had a beautiful open to the public heated pool. First of all, Bitcoiners have already created the not open to public, but the heating of hot tubs in Brooklyn using Bitcoin mining. Indeed, we can create all of this stuff. And that's why I've been saying that Bitcoin citadels fit into the AI data model very well. And here you're seeing even more. Many people would not seem to want data centers built near them, despite the fact that they don't cause that much traffic and often generate a lot of local tax revenue. I suspect it's partly because they're ugly. My proposal, here's what he wants. This is why we're getting Bitcoin citadels, guys, because it fits into the model of the AI data center, energy finance. It will align power with a new culture, which will change people's minds more than anything. And it's not just the data centers, it's the Bitcoin citadels that are coming. It's the new social aspects that could solve the problem that Mark Andreessen is talking about here. That we aren't not social because of the smartphone. It's because of all the brainwashing on the smartphone and all the division that people have. But if we have shared values and spaces because people align with power, and I mean literally electricity, that's why, I predict it's going to change culture more than anything. And go back to the elections in the midterms and just realize that this scheme of Bernie Sanders and everyone against the AI data centers is a big failure. It's going to flop entirely. And we're going to be able to create new culture out of these data centers that will align people because it's just cheaper electricity. That's why Trump has ordered them all to make their own electricity. We're going to have huge big grid build out as a result of this. And that is what's going to align people and change their minds. We're going to get public pools, shared physical spaces. We're going to get citadels. We're going to get all of this stuff. We're even going to get good entertainment again. Here, look, you see, thank you, Bitcoin Conference from Mike Germano saying, for letting me speak to fellow Bitcoiner Adrian Grenier on stage to announce that Self-Custody is becoming a TV series. HBO going to do a Bitcoin-focused show. This is about the people inside the movement told in a way only a culture-defining show can. This is the Entourage group again coming back, right? The Entourage group coming back. And hopefully catching lightning in a bottle again as they did before, not just for Bitcoiners. Great storytelling is how we bring the next wave into our world. Great sharing the stage with the king of cringe, the champ Henry, can't pronounce his last name, and director Garrett Patton. Imagine his name is Patton, and he's going to be leading a new enthusiastic regime of positive vibes for America. Bitcoin is going to Hollywood. Hollywood is fixable. We're going to get a better storytelling mechanism out there. We're going to, again, fix a lot of the brainwashing that's out there through good stories, good physical spaces. And this is how you end up winning and how you end up, and even on movies. I mean, it's another reason why Trump's incredible storytelling ability is so interesting, because it's a more entertaining way to frame the world. And now I don't know if any of this beekeeper stuff is true, but it's a lot of fun. Trump tweeting out the beekeeper picture here after he had the bee on his hand, and using this Hollywood film, The Beekeeper, in order to underline it. Do you know what the story of the Beekeeper movie is? It's about a former deep state assassin who comes out of retirement to go on a war rampage against the deep state group of actors and start killing them. And it even had a fun timestamp on it. I don't know if you caught the timestamp, folks, but there was a timestamp, and the timestamp was relevant to people who follow these timestamp things. And here, even, trapping the deep state. This is bees in a trap. Where the Secretary of the Treasury is singing with Cardi B about this. So bees in a trap, the beekeeper story, the beekeeper movie thing coming out all on the same day. Fun stuff. Let me make sure. So there's your Secretary of the Treasury talking about bees in a trap with, sorry, is it Cardi B? Do I always get that wrong? Nicki Minaj, pardon me. Why do I always do that? I know you guys always let me know. It's Nicki Minaj. I'm sorry for getting that wrong. I don't want to get that wrong ever again. I caught myself that time. So there you go. Nicki Minaj, bees in a trap. There you go. Bees confined in an artificial snare. The moment highlighted exposure and the breaking of old constraints. The message has been delivered. The authentic Masonic hive, rooted in visible industry and legitimate stewardship, is reasserting itself. The synthetic traps are crumbling. The swarm senses the shift and follows the true master. The hive is stirring. The bees have been told. So there you go. It's what am I supposed to say, guys? This is what is actually happening in the world that surrounds you. This is real. This is not made up. I'm not hallucinating. This is what's going on. And the trap and the awakening. Why do you think we call this the Great Awakening? We are awakening very, very quickly. All of this bee stuff is really important. You're supposed to, and apparently the royal family adheres to this. And I think Charles's face when the bee lands in there is like, oh, fuck. What? Because I don't think the bee was cued to do that. but they're supposed to tell their families, they're supposed to tell the beehive about changes in family. Someone dies, someone's born. You go and alert the hive when the queen died and there's a new king. So this has been around for a while, all part of the story, and it's been around for a long time. So the symbolism there, very powerful. And again, when you see this trap being sprung, when you see the Secretary of the Treasury talking about bees in a trap, and you see the Beehive movie, which fits a storyline that a lot of people believe, that you're part of the greatest show on earth. That's why here, coming back to the story of perceiving these power centers and why this change is so important and the king coming in so important. Finally, our Susan Kokinda, who's been sharing this frame about the City of London, got a huge, huge boost yesterday. She went on the PBD podcast and got some incredible coverage of what's going on. And here, from JFK to Trump power shift, who's really to blame? Britain, British influence behind the scenes, the globalist agenda explained, King Charles and the hidden influence, why England is getting weaker inside global power organizations. And again, here, Epstein lies and lazy narratives. That is their last hope in this whole framework. And it's just not working. And that's why we're seeing the season of accountability. What did I tell you? Once we pivoted, right? 9/11 stuff was coming back. Epstein stuff was coming back. Once the golden age party of the 250th is over, once we have all of this transitionary theater, all of this drama, the king probably submitted. It looks like we're going to find out shortly. What did I predict as well? The king probably bye-bye in the next few months. So everything getting reoriented, re-architected. And once that was done, going up to the midterms, again, what did I say? It's going to be energy abundance, Bitcoin all-time highs. We're on schedule, right? Energy abundance, Bitcoin all-time highs, this deep state weaker than ever. And you're going to go into golden age type rhetoric from now on. And you're going to get the one other thing that people really want in America. The other thing that will keep Trump super popular and will keep this revolution rolling, which is space drops, motherfuckers dying, motherfuckers in a trap dying. And it looks more and more like we're going to get what we want. The Comey case getting more and more interesting. He's arrested as of yesterday. And I think with the 86-47 stuff, especially with the assassination attempt, it might work. But nevertheless, there's probably more coming. Hans Monkey saying here, this would be like someone in his basement making up a completely fabricated story about Obama, Clinton, or Biden, and then Kash Patel briefing them on it, leaking to the media that he had done so, and going on a publicity tour about it, all while knowing it was entirely made up. Any honest person should be able to see how evil it is, but many won't, either because they never got the facts or because they have terminal TDS and are impervious to them. Either way, it is a very unhealthy place for a public debate to be. That's why motherfuckers got to drop. That's why it has to happen, and that's why things are going this way. And again, power aligns, right? This is why these guys are going to have no more protection. That's why they're going to have no more ability to run cover for them. We're already seeing Goldman Sachs start to realign. Two more financial companies cutting off the SPLC are preventing donor-advised funds from funding the Southern Poverty Law Center, the very type of group that would run cover, that would create more propaganda, that would create more hallucinogenic type content to persuade people that they live under some Nazi authoritarian crazy shit. So you're seeing everything realign now, and the ability to stop the realignment is weakening and weakening and weakening. The elections, the midterms, again, I think I'm so bullish on Trump's chances because of this realignment, because of things like SPLC, because of the electricity. It's getting even better, right? The SCOTUS came out as well and nuked the Democrats' favorite election rigging scheme from orbit, and the leftist panic is pure comedy gold. The Supreme Court just torched Louisiana's disgusting racial snake map, that gerrymandered, intestine-looking abomination Democrats used to steal seats in the South. Decades of VRA lawfare, racially rigged districts, and minority group rights bullshit dead. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act never required this unconstitutional race-based map drawing, but activist courts turned it into a Democrat superpower. Yesterday, that superpower got castrated. Louisiana is already suspending primaries. Florida just fast-tracked a 4 GOP map that's now bulletproof. Alabama is redrawing ASAP. More states are about to pile on. This one ruling could vaporize up to 40 Democrat House seats. 40. The same clowns who've been protected by racial gerrymandering for years, like Benny Thompson, are about to get redrawn into political oblivion. Obama's already out there crying about democracy, minority group rights, like the Constitution give Rachel blocks special privileges. Newsflash, Barry, groups don't have rights. Individuals do. Your neo-communist identity politics just got slapped into next week. The Democrats' southern firewall is collapsing. Their House math is imploding. And the salt flowing from the left is absolutely delicious. This is what winning looks like. Midterms just got a massive red wave injection. The panic is glorious. The Virginia map struck down. That kind of gerrymandering just won't happen. And here's what it looks like going forward. Ben Hart reminding us, here's how the congressional redistricting maps war is looking at the moment in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling that race cannot be used for the purpose of drawing congressional districts. And I believe Virginia Supreme Court will overturn, I thought they did, but maybe not, the new Virginia congressional map because the referendum was illegally conducted. Virginia Supreme Court has already affirmed the lower court. Okay, that's what they did. They affirmed the halt of the new Virginia district map, which suggests the VA Supreme Court is ready to cancel it. We now need Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia to hold special sessions to redraw their maps, which I think will happen because the Supreme Court ruling was specifically about the unconstitutional racially drawn districts. Note, these racially drawn districts were theoretically designed to punish the old Confederate states for slavery and segregationist Jim Crow era laws, but likely actually have the impact of hurting Black Americans by funneling a disproportionate number of Black voters into few districts and actually creating more segregation. We would probably have more Black people in Congress without these specially drawn Black congressional districts. The answer to racism and segregation is not more racism and segregation. So here you're going to see the realignment here, plus 13 seats. This beauty might not make it either. Unfortunately, you're not going to get this princess in Florida any longer. So if you're Floridian, you're going to lose this Disney princess right here. She's not going to continue. Pleased to report that my Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz will be losing her congressional seat thanks to Florida's new congressional district map. Can you believe Florida being deprived of such a princess as that? What a shame. And now moving over to what's going on in Maine as well. Great news there. The Nazis definitely getting, the Nazi tattoo guys definitely getting the nomination. So that should mean Susan Collins will likely win. The best part here is that John Favreau, former Obama White House guy, saying Graham Plattner isn't just our best and only chance to beat Susan Collins. He's a good, decent man who's struggled and grown and is always trying to do better. I hope everyone with reservations takes a little time to get to know the real life version of him. Not that the algorithm throws in your faces. Clearly, that's what so many people in Maine have done, from all different walks of life and political persuasions. Stephen Miller, the tattoo in his chest is not just a swastika. It's not just a Nazi symbol. It's very specific. The tattoo of Totenkopf that he has on his chest is the Nazi watchguards who stood over concentration camp watchtowers and purposely shot Jews at will within those walls. This is what Pod Save America is now, and this is what the political electoral left is now. It's not a winning argument, guys. It's not a winning argument. Here he is. Just to emphasize what Bernie and Democrats are endorsing here and where they are headed, Graham Plattner is running on expanding SCOTUS and impeaching / removing Supreme Court justices, including Clarence Thomas. So probably not going to work. And that's why things are changing like this. Even politically, you know, in America, more and more of these stories coming out about just how crooked everything was with the SPLC and Arctic Frost and all of these investigations. Texts show 2 Biden DOJ prosecutors who went on to work on Arctic Frost with Jack Smith, chatting about how they'd like to target Catholic nuns. And Cernovich brings up here, the Pope is never shy about discussing politics, nor short on scolding of J.D. Vance and Trump. I look forward to his remarks condemning Joe Biden for selectively prosecuting Catholics and seeking to imprison nuns. Another reason why this Catholic fight is very good for Trump and why it will continue to move in this direction. All this filibuster stuff with the looking weaker and weaker. Here you get Timu Obama coming out and trying to talk about redistricting. Just think of the persuasion here. So, this is not to even comment on the actual technical plan to flood the Supreme Court, increase the justices, or whatever Hakeem Jeffries is talking about here. This is what he's going on in the midterms. Him and the Nazi tattoo guy. Okay. Now, again, contrast that with what Trump's going to be talking about, and you decide what's more persuasive. Is it going to be the technicalities of judges, filibusters, what's going on in DC, or what about cheap gas? Which do you think? And then the other guy's saying no cheap gas because they want to ban the data centers. So which do you think is going to be more persuasive, right? Which do you think is going to be more persuasive? It's just so simple, right? And here he is. Is it going to be golden age stuff or this?
The guy's falling apart. The MAGA majorities in Congress are falling apart. The Supreme Court is a disgrace. And Ben, in the new Congress, we're going to have to do something about this Supreme Court. And let me be very clear. Everything is on the table. Everything to deal with this corrupt MAGA majority that is issuing political opinions that are designed to bolster the prospects of the Republican Party. And we will not allow them to succeed.
What a just a drooler, Yeah, this is their other plan here, right? This guy, if Democrats actually want to fight back, they want 8 states coming out of DC. Not one state. They want 8 states, 16 senators to codify voting rights. No more half measures. It's incredible how quickly the left will adopt the tactics of third world dictators the moment they don't get their way. None of their rhetoric about norms and democracy is real. No, because power aligns. And that is the formula here. And that's why when you see J.D. Vance say this, right, the American people are spoken. They are sick of ridiculous performative politics. For Hakeem Jeffries to go out and say that you need to fight in the streets is dangerous. It's disgraceful rhetoric, and it's not at all what the American people asked for. And indeed, it's not at all what's going to happen. You're going to see lots change. John C919 says, what was the beekeeper timestamp thing? The timestamp of the beekeeper posts is how a lot of people look into Q drops. And so there was a specific number related to the timestamp that it came out with, which exactly fit the bee question and what the beekeeper movie is about. So it was, it's just a not subtle coincidence. And it's the same day Trump was doing more of the of that stuff. Every now and again, he gets on a little thread where when you get this kind of stuff, here's Owen Schroyer of all people changing his rhetoric, which is what Owen Schroyer, Trump is now posting raw marketing, not subtle, blatant. So this was Trump on Truth Social yesterday with the beekeeper post as well. And Owen Schroyer, who has been telling you forever, no season of accountability, now saying season of accountability. Or at least I think that's what he's saying. Speaking of Owen Schroyer, indeed, a sad day yesterday, end of an era, but also a great day. We got InfoWars off the air. But he's back. He's back. Don't worry, guys. As crazy as he's been on some of his stuff, we still love the wrestling entertainment. We'll never not be an Alex Jones fan. New home, same mission. It's now the Alex Jones Network. Remember, it's all just entertainment, right? It's all just entertainment. You have to see the wrestling kayfabe of it all. I will never hold ill will towards Alex Jones, no matter how much crazy shit he says about the president and about Israel and all those things and Iran losing the war. We love Alex Jones for who he is, and we've always been an Alex Jones fan. We were Alex Jones from the beginning for the wrestling stuff. It's like wrestling. We like entertainment. I don't think I've ever not thought of Alex Jones as wrestling aesthetic entertainment. I think even before I got into all this kayfabe and talking about kayfabe with you guys on the show, even before all of that, I would frame Alex Jones, even when he was still off the air and you couldn't find InfoWars and he was off Twitter. If you go back on this show, when I would talk about Alex Jones, from the earliest days, I said I always watched it like wrestling. I always watched it with the same idea that I was watching entertainment, and that it was entertainment about political storylines, and that there was, like in wrestling, truth to the entertainment. But it's entertainment first, right? You have to keep that frame. It's entertainment first, and realize you're being drawn into storylines, you're being drawn into narratives. Not to hurt you, I think in general, he's drawing you into storylines for a type of great awakening ploy, or it's just his art form. It's just how he performs, but it is performance. And we love the guy. So we'll always be a fan as a kayfabe op. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. He's the epitome of entertaining an idea. Yes, exactly. I'll always be a fan. And I think I was a little disappointed when he first went on the Trump-Iran thing, not because I was disappointed in his opinion. It's because after Scott Adams died, I really didn't know where to, because I don't watch any content, by the way, guys. I don't watch any podcasts other than Promethean Action, actually. The only show I ever watched was Scott Adams, and I had a lot of problems looking for some form of content after he died. And for a little while, I was watching Alex Jones. There was that month of February where there was no Scott Adams, and I was mourning, and the war hadn't started. And Alex was really hitting a lot of home runs. I liked it. And then when his opinions didn't jive with mine on Iran, I was, I don't think I ever said anything bad about him on this show, or just, that I didn't trust him or something like that. But it's not about trust, right? It's about how you process the story that he's telling you. You don't wonder about trusting a filmmaker when you're watching their movie. It's not really the point, right? You're watching it for the narrative and find out what happens next. And so, anyway, I'm glad he found this pivot, and we're going to get that coming out. There's Hank in the house. Hank, how you doing, my man? Hold on. Let me get you up. There you are, Hank. How you doing?
Little tardy this morning. I got to apologize. We got a big show on Rocks.
Be careful about saying tardy here on the show. Be careful.
Oh,
well, tardy.
Am I too late, Powell? Now.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, we're pumped. We got a crazy one today. We'll be joined in studio this morning by Sean Bill and the one and only Adam Back.
Yeah. Wow.
So we're very excited.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So much fun, man. In studio.
Yeah, in studio. They're in town, I think, after the conference. So we got the most patriotic man in Bitcoin, Walker, and Adam. And
everyone, stick around.
Yeah. So I know that New York Times article just came out calling him Satoshi again. So that'll be a fun thing to jam about for a minute. And apparently they have a really great product coming out akin to Stretch and SATA. So they're going to be talking about that. Yeah, we're very excited.
Well, what a coup for you, Hank. Amazing.
It is. We really don't deserve it here. We're very, very grateful and excited. So I encourage everyone to stick around. We certainly are going to miss you today, Nolan, but we'll be excited to jam with you at the start of next week.
So everyone in my chat, tarded Hank. Hank is tarded.
No, I'm retarded now. Great. I feel like, what is it? Tim Waltz. Everyone's yelling retard at me like they did at his house. I probably deserve it, though. Let's be real.
Nah, you're doing great. But people are really happy. Adam Back, exclamation points. I'm sure you're going to have a great audience today. Amazing. So knock it out of the park, my man. I'll be right after you with Canadian breakup. It ain't going well in Canada. We're going to have fun. So there you go.
All right. Well, you all have a nice weekend. Enjoy the rest of your show, and I'll see you next week, bud. Appreciate you.
Hank. Take it easy, man.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thanks.
You heard Hank. We got a big show coming up next. There you go, everyone. Enjoy. Florida's favorite swamp donkey, says Johnny Midas. She's come on, we're gonna be nice here. I called her a princess. I don't going around calling her a swamp donkey. That's not nice. I would never call her a swamp donkey, Johnny Midas. I don't do that. Okay. I don't make fun of people for their look. I said princess. She's from like around Disney. So that I was being honest. Data centers can have negative impacts on health that need to be figured out before citadels can be truly viable operation. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but you don't have to build them next to it. Like when you see those pictures of citadels, you can still, it can be a couple miles away. But I agree. Yeah, I would never buy a house near huge transformer lines or anything like that. I've always been no look shaming, exactly. I had a friend die of, I think it ended up being AIDS. She got a blood transfusion. It was not my friend, but my mom's best friend when I was young, who her family still lives in the house. It's a cottage of theirs, not far from my parents' home. And they have a beautiful pond. And I spent a lot of time catching frogs and hanging out at their property when I was young. And she died. We think of AIDS, but it was the 80s, so it's kind of hard to tell. But the other theory at the time was that they had one of those houses that, in their backyard in the suburbs, their city house was in the suburbs, and it was where all the big lines come through. So before we really knew it was AIDS or whatever, there was a big worry that it was caused by the power. So I never forgot that my whole life. And I can't see power lines and houses next to each other and not get like, I don't want to live there. So there you go. All right, folks, we shall see you all later on today. I'm unaware of what happened at InfoWars. It's still the same. It's still the same legal trouble. They owe billions of dollars. So all he did was just shut it down because of the court orders to pay, I don't know who, and start up the new, I guess the families of the Sandy Hook or something like that. And it just started up a new show, which, as you know, in Strawman doesn't hold the legal obligations towards the previous regime. You can cut legal responsibilities and obligations off your personal self by creating new companies. As I learned in that Ironworks barbecue diner years ago, as related by the fella who taught me all about the Wizard of Oz connection and the straw man that comes with it. All right, folks, that's what I got for today. We're over time. I'll say goodbye. See you all later on today. If not, have a great weekend. The logo and the thanks for watching screen about to play. Thanks for watching. Peace.